Benny Johnson of Turning Point USA was attacked by a maniac who got arrested. Yeah, just the other day. It's been a couple weeks since Joe Biden warned this country of MAGA Republican extremists. And then only a couple weeks later, just the other day, a man got in an SUV and crushed a teenager, killing him. Why? He called the police and said that the kid was a Republican extremist. Do you think that Joe Biden had anything to do with that? I don't blame Joe Biden for expressing his opinion, saying these people are evil or just not liking their politics and saying there's a threat. But the left comes out and talks about Donald Trump's stochastic terrorism and then engages in behavior like this and then claims that the right is killing people. They're literally killing people. And they're going out literally killing people. And they're going out and actually destroying things and attacking people. And they're going out and bringing on these district attorneys who are releasing criminals and crime is skyrocketing. And then they blame you when you want to defend yourself. It's crazy, isn't it? Clown world from the Postmillennial. Breaking. Maniac arrested at University of Iowa after violent attack at Turning Point USA Benny Johnson event. They say a Tuesday night University of Iowa event featuring TPUSA contributor Benny Johnson was violently interrupted by a man who drop-kicked a table and a video projector, and according to eyewitnesses was arrested. I don't think he drop-kicked it. He just kicked it. Like, a drop kick is when you jump and with both feet kick. So I don't think that's what happened. Johnson was speaking on the subject of memes when his presentation was disrupted by a young man wearing a green bandana on his head. Footage shows the man reacting to a Kamala Harris meme by yelling racist, A, B, F you, and then drop kicking and destroying a projector. Footage taken outside the event shows the individual getting arrested and being escorted away by police. Shortly after the event, Johnson tweeted, breaking, I was giving a speech about memes at the University of Iowa tonight. With TPUSA, a Kamala Harris meme triggered the violent libs so bad they attacked the projector and smashed it to pieces. I told you the left can't meme. Johnson is currently on tour of American campuses under the title Meme Wars, where he discusses how conservatives can fight back in the culture wars by unlocking the power of meme magic. Despite the violent incident, the event continued, and Johnson even took photos with far attendees who made vulgar gestures. We often say the left can't meme. Tonight we proved it. I was giving a peaceful speech to the University of Iowa Turning Point USA chapter about memes this evening. During a presentation, we played a harmless meme of Kamala Harris welcoming a bus full of migrants set to tasteful mariachi music. That is when a low-T leftist strung out on pure soy snapped into a violent rage. Oh, pure soy, strung out on soy. I watched dispassionately as the libs' last drop of testosterone evaporated in an unprovoked kick attack on an innocent projector. The projector's crime? Playing memes. Thankfully, no one was hurt by the domestic terror attack, other than an innocent Panasonic projector. The perpetrator was arrested soon after and booked for a hate crime against memes. Our heart goes out to the brave Iowa City Police Department. Fund the police. Let this moment serve as a poignant metaphor for what happens to meme makers across social media when their accounts get attacked. As someone who lived through January 6th, I can tell you this attack was much scarier and represents a larger existential threat to our democracy. The First Amendment is under attack constantly from the left. It survived. This time, the left can't meme. They can't. There used to be a subreddit on Reddit called The Left Can't Meme. Now, all you ever see is a subreddit called The Right Can't Meme. It's a psyop. We know now that there are organizations in the U.S., this was Washington Post reporting, that are engaged in psychological operations, namely to promote Ukraine and anti-Russian narratives. But I think it's fairly obvious to anyone who understands the psychological operations as they've been handled in the United States. So we know that top brass in the executive branch, in the military and intelligence agencies were freaking out because memes were undermining our security. How? Well, they helped Donald Trump win. The left really can't meme. So what they have is assistance from organizations to meme on their behalf. Reddit then bans right-wing groups and stops those memes from happening. As it turns out, MIT Technology Review found that in 2015 and 16, I believe it was, with Donald Trump's rise to the presidency, memes were predominantly produced on 4chan and I believe the Donald subreddit. When you'd see memes, that's where they'd originate. Now, right now, there's an argument from the left that the right can't meme. And so what they do is they take boomer memes, post them on Reddit and claim this is the right, they can't meme. Meanwhile, almost every single meme, slang term or otherwise, generates from the right and then is utilized by the left. I'll give you a few examples. Snowflake. Y'all remember Snowflake? It was a reference to Fight Club, in reference to being a delicate little snowflake. And it's because the left was getting triggered. Namely because they had pastel rooms at universities where they would go and hide if words triggered them. Now the left calls the right snowflakes when they get offended by things, appropriating a meme that came from the right. There are many such instances. How about living rent-free in your head, which predominantly emerged on the right and now is utilized by the left. This is the reality of things. You have dark MAGA, Donald Trump, and The Revenge. And then now all of a sudden you have Dark Brandon. They're just ripping off right-wing memes because they can't do it themselves. It's sad and pathetic. But the real issue here is not the memes. No, it's the violence and the insanity. This guy attacked. This guy is unhinged. I think many of these leftists, they have no life. And I don't mean like some generic get a life. I mean like quite literally they have no faith in anything. I'm not talking about religion. I'm saying they have no hope. They have no vision of a future. They don't believe in anything. They have no mission. They're just angry. And they don't know what to be angry at. And I have to wonder about this. Humans, evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology, these things are really interesting to me. You take a bunch of people, a bunch of humans, and you put them in the middle of the woods with no technology. And then what happens is those most adaptable to survival will survive. So you start to see things. I'll give you a simple example of evolutionary psychology and biology, evolutionary culture. 100 men and 100 women. 99 men die. 1 man survives. That 1 man impregnates 100 women over the course of a few weeks. And in 9 months, he has 100 babies. 100 women, 100 babies. Now, I honestly don't think he'd be able to impregnate all of them that quickly, but you get the point. All these women can have kids and one guy can inseminate them all. If 99 women die and there's 100 men, they're doomed. They won't be able to create enough people to replace themselves, and they're in serious trouble. It would take decades to start to rebuild and get a female population, but 1 baby every 9 months, they're lucky. And what if the baby's not even a girl? Serious trouble. This results in gender norms. It results in society that says women must be protected at all costs, and a general bias in favor of keeping women safe, which also turns into a net negative for women who don't want to be on lockdown and want to have the ability to go and roam about freely and do their business. Anyway, here's my point. A society survives. This tribe of humans survives when they are passionate and driven towards expansion. Why? Humans that are more likely to seek out resources, even if they don't need it, are more likely to survive. If you have 2 human tribes and one says, if we don't need it, we don't waste our time, they could be benefited by the fact they save energy. Instead of chasing down excess resources and failing, they preserve the energy within their bodies and don't waste energy and time. They eat with the food they have and that's available. However, I believe that evolutionarily what happens is you have one tribe of people and they say, we have food, we want more. Winter comes. The people who did not prepare are wiped out. The people who overprepared, survive the winter. Maybe not winter, maybe it's a storm, maybe it's a drought, maybe it's a famine. What ends up happening is humans that succeeded to this point were driven constantly to have more. And that's why humans always want more. Now, I bring you to a world where food is in abundance and there's nothing to be done. You go to the supermarket and it's dirt cheap for food for the most part. But that passion and that anger is still there. But there's nothing you can get, nothing you can take, nothing. For many people, they replace that hole with faith. That there is a mission, there is something they must pursue. They're driven towards it. And for some, there's nothing. So what do? They fill the hole with rage and they're confused and they're violent. And they attack people. And this is what you see. This guy who attacked the projector has no idea what he's talking about. There's no reason for doing this. It did nothing. It's just rage for the sake of rage. Probably because I think humans are driven towards a mission to be impassioned and angered and strive towards something. But when there's nothing to strive towards because you're already the wealthiest country in the world, what do? You lash out. This morning, I had bacon and eggs for breakfast. Readily available at my fingertips, a big old pack of thick-cut bacon. So good. And I took some crushed black pepper and sprinkled it all over my bacon and eggs. I don't do the salt, just the bacon. Bacon's salty enough. And I thought to myself, there was a time when people were murdered for black peppercorn. The East India Trading Company went on many a venture. Wars were fought so that food could taste good. And black peppercorn at one point, I believe, was like the most expensive spice in the world. And now it's a table spice. It is the table spice. Anywhere you go, it's just sitting right there, black pepper flakes. You go to Walmart, bargain bin, sitting in a big old bin on sale, 20% off, 30% off. We are so wealthy that what was once one of the most expensive things to put on your food is now just readily available and negligible. You walk into a diner, you sit down, there's the pepper and the salt, and you just don't care. That's how wealthy we are. Even the poorest people in this country. Homeless guy says, please, I would like lunch. And someone says, here's $10, buy yourself dinner. Thank you. He walks into a diner. $10 won't go far these days, but he sits down and says, you know what? I'll get chips and salsa. $7. How about that? At a restaurant. I know it's kind of expensive, but they bring it out. And he says, pepper and salt. Sitting right there with my chips. Don't want it. Don't need it. But this homeless guy, how about this? He goes to McDonald's and they have little packets of pepper and salt. And he gets a burger for $1 and he sprinkles black pepper on it. And he says, like the finest kings of old, I have black peppercorn, but I am but a homeless man. That's how wealthy we are. And because of this derangement, it's resulting in an inversion. Take a look at this. From the Postmillennial, Chicago stops responding to 911 calls after a surge during Mexican Independence Day celebrations. Crazy. In audio obtained by crimeisdown.com, the dispatcher can be heard telling Novelez that most everything on his call board was over 3 hours old. Crime's through the roof. The DAs can't handle it. The system is crumbling because people are now reacting in random directions because there's no direction anymore. We have food. We have everything. What more could you want? There's nothing. So what do? Insanity. You know, I look at it this way. It's like a cultural cancer. When you have a life form, you have a society, and there's 100 people, and they say, in order to survive, we need food. 10% of these people say something like, garbledy, gobbledy, boobity, bop. And you say, that is gibberish nonsense. That's not actually words. And they just prance about spinning in circles. 90 or 80, however many people, say 90 people, they go and they find food and they eat. And the gobbledygook nonsense people starve and then die. And we don't want them to, but, they're unwell. So they don't make it. So then only 90 people survive and they have kids, and those kids are less likely to be garbled nonsense. But garbled nonsense and insanity can happen. Over time, humanity flourishes with the weak failing and dying. We don't like death. We try to help everyone. That's increased our chances of survival. But now comes the next phase. We have now done such a good job saving lives that we continually are defending, creating, and expanding people who are incapable of self-survival. That's what I think is happening. Now, again, we want people to live, even if they are incapable. We don't want them to die. But you see, ultimately what this results in is that people who would not be considered fit in terms of natural selection procreate, have kids, expand. Eventually end up with a culture that is aimless and only survive off the backs of its forebearers. The end result there is you now have 90 people who are saying gobbledygook nonsense and 10% who are saying, please, we need food. What happens? Eventually, the producers who are being overwhelmed stop producing, flee. It's like Ayn Rand wrote, right? And the people who can't sustain themselves, don't know where food comes from, starve. And there's a mass collapse. Because the organism system, the society can't sustain itself. This is what you get. Newt Gingrich has something interesting to say. He says society is going to collapse. So civilization will break down over rising crime rates in big cities. That's right. I agree with him. We now have too many people who don't understand reality, who feel entitled, and who could not survive on their own, extracting resources from those who can. It's only a matter of time before the producers stop producing. Or there are too many non-producers. Now, we can keep striving towards technological advancements to make sure that doesn't happen, or we may just end up with a collapse. I would not be surprised if in the coming years we see a major Black Plague level collapse, because the system cannot be sustained this way. And you also have powerful special interests that want to see population reduction anyway. After the Black Death swept through Europe, we got the Renaissance. Why? The weak were culled. It's an unfortunate reality. I certainly don't advocate for it, but I think you need to understand the reality. If you have 90 people who are incompetent and 10 people who are competent, the 90 people will outvote the 10 competent people with policies that make no sense. And then the system will implode, whether you want it to or not. That's what we see happening now with crime. I feel like it's only going to get worse. New Orleans becomes the murder capital of America, overtaking St. Louis. Yikes, man. The scary thing is, that doesn't mean crime is going down in St. Louis. New Orleans has overtaken St. Louis as the nation's murder capital with a 141% spike in homicides over the last several years. St. Louis, it's probably still getting worse there as well. So what do you do, man? What do you do? Knowing these things, you can try and reject them. You can try and say it's not real, it's not going to happen. Or you can get away from cities, get some chickens, some goats, some cows, learn how to grow your own food, and learn how to survive the way humans were. The way they were surviving hundreds of years ago. Now's the chance. Now's the opportunity. Because the fourth turning predicts a major collapse or something is coming in the next few years. Maybe by the time we get to, 2026, we will see major war or something. I ask myself this question from time to time, and I've mentioned it on my show. Name an item, or I should say what item, is the most valuable at-home item that is difficult to reproduce. And I kind of feel like maybe antiseptics, mouthwash. Now, some people have said that alcohol is actually not too hard to produce, for sure. But having antiseptics is extremely important. You stub your toe, you get a little cut, amputation. I was reading about, I went to Stonewall Jackson's house this past week, and I mentioned this previously. And I was reading about a battlefield surgeon who was a master of amputation. And it's just amazing that they had to amputate. And I'm like, wouldn't the amputation create a larger wound as it is? It's amazing how they they understood to amputate, but they didn't understand why they had to. It's just weird. Imagine someone got injured and they pulled out the musket ball or whatever. And then they just washed the wound or had something as simple as alcohol. They had alcohol. This is the craziest thing. They had alcohol. They had rum. It's antiseptic. You could splash it all over. I don't know how effective, to be honest. But it's crazy they didn't know this. To clean the wound and splash. If only they knew. If only someone spoke a single sentence to these people. Well, we know. We now know. So if you know how to do it, if you know how to distill, I don't know if wine would necessarily, be as antiseptic enough. But you could probably get the alcohol content down substantially with basic chemistry knowledge. It can be done. You can do it. It can be done. I don't know if civilization will collapse to an insane degree like that. I just think chance favors the prepared. And as we watch maniacs attack speakers and lunatics crush teenagers for being Republicans, I think it would be wise, appropriate, for you to figure out how to properly grow food and raise animals and prepare for the worst. I think you'd be better off homesteading, being as self-sufficient as possible. It's better for the environment, it's better for your health, and it'll protect you in the future. So let's say this one more time. Mentally, homesteading is better for you. Physically, it is better for you. You'll be more fit. It will prepare you for the future. It will be better for the environment. There is just no downside at all. I suppose you'll be in less proximity to Buffalo Wild Wings, which I know it sucks. But we're not that far away from B-dubs out here. You know, we got middle of nowhere, big acreage, and we can do all this stuff. And it's amazing when you grow the food and you just come out one day and there's your breakfast right there, just ready and waiting for you. It really is an amazing feeling. The chickens crap out the egg. You grab a couple fresh from the butts of those chickens, and you grab some tomatoes and some zucchinis, and you got some protein, and you got a good breakfast. You get some pigs into the mix. You get some cows in the mix. You get some dairy, some pork. There you go, baby. You got to learn how to store and prepare the meat and all that stuff, how to preserve it. And they smoke it. You can smoke it. You can salt it. I think they've even done, they would do sawdust and something like that. Sawdust to dry it out or whatever. I don't honestly don't know proper preservation. Solar panels can be useful because solar panels can run a freezer for you. Doesn't take that much to run a freezer. The point is this. Crime is skyrocketing. People are going insane. What are you doing to protect yourself, your friends, and your family in the event of a true catastrophe? Because maybe it's not the collapse of civilization like Newt Gingrich says. Maybe it's just a storm. I recommend getting away from cities because these people are increasingly becoming unhinged. But you do you, man. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.